This might have been the best single
Yeah.
go around we've had, honestly. And I think there's something in the universality, but also uniqueness in what everybody's sharing. Just noticing how many nods and these are happening. And also just like awareness, self awareness. Really cool to see that people are so aware, like, at the drop of a dime, know what some of their patterns are. And so we'll get into this a little bit more. I'm gonna try to make sure to leave more time for discussion at the end. But since we're all here and we're talking about stress and burnout, I really want to have some time for us to sit. This is one of the most supportive things for stress, is to set aside time to not have to do anything. Just sit here. We're gonna breathe. It'll be fairly simple. So just finding any way to sit that feels good for you. And I really appreciate everyone being coming. If you need to move for the meditation and go wherever, please do whatever you need to do to be comfortable. And if you'd like to, you can close your eyes, or you can just rest your gaze at the floor in front of us here. Whatever feels good. And starting with this intention, whatever it was that brought you here, and also the intention that since we're here, to really set down any added pressure the mind might be placing at the moment, and really dropping into the body, the sensory experience, and the breath. If it feels good for you, you can take a few deeper breaths, maybe stretching into the lower half of the lungs a little bit. Just noticing whatever feels supportive for your body, for your mind, for your heart right now. And the instruction is so simple, but not easy. We're going to rest the attention on the rhythm of the breath. And as important as the mind is going to want to make everything seem, just continually setting that down, putting it in the background, and really bringing the body and the breath to the forefront of your attention and your awareness. And to support this process, we can soften the body, which can also help soften the mind. So starting in the middle of the head, just noticing if there's any holding or tension there, and releasing. And the same thing with the forehead and the eyes. And the jaw. Classic point of tension. Just noticing if there's any holding there, the tongue. And already noticing the impact that this has on the mind. This mind and this body are not separate things, intertwined. Noticing the shoulders and seeing if it's possible to just release a little bit there. And scanning down through the upper arms, the lower arms, the wrists and the hands. And noticing the circulation of blood flow, the energy of the body. Kind of pouring the mind down into the body. Breathing through the chest, through the stomach. And noticing that, noticing the sensation of this simple breath, this thing that this human body has been doing from the day you were born, and has the wisdom and capacity to do it in a way that will help you re-regulate, reset. So trusting in the body's wisdom, intuition, and allowing each out breath to soften through this emotional center of the body, through the heart, the stomach, and the belly. And just allowing whatever's here, and meeting it with an attitude of kindness, of acceptance, of patience, and breathing with whatever's here, not against it. Not trying to push anything away, get rid of anything, or force the mind to be calm. But samadhi, or collectedness of mind, comes through a process of unification. So folding the energy of the breath back into the body. Whatever's here, it's okay. Feeling the support of this collective room as well, and feeling the connectedness to the ground, to the cushion, to the mat, the chair, and breathing into and from the legs. Noticing the circulation of blood flow, the energy moving through the upper legs, the lower legs, all the way down through the feet. And let's just spend a few minutes really feeling that connection to the floor or the chair. It's going to be one of the most grounding things. Each out breath, kind of visualizing that each out breath is opening up this connection to the earth, to the ground. If that's a metaphor that feels supportive. Or maybe any stress is just melting away down through the body, into the ground, into the earth. Recognizing this body is from the earth. In so many ways, meditation is reconnecting to this true nature of the body. What is it like to really be aware from the lower half of the body? So often, the mind is visualized as being in the head, visualizing that this mind is in the feet and the legs, this knowing. It has no preferences. There's no grasping in it. There's no ego. Just this simple, open, spacious awareness. This is the real gold. The most valuable thing we can uncover in meditation. So as some of the stress or the momentum of the mind, some of the mind's patterns start to settle down, noticing what's underneath. From where do all the thoughts arise and pass into? From where do all the sensations of this body arise and pass into? The sounds, the smells and tastes, everything coming and going. And there's just this spacious quality of mind where the mind can find a sense of rest. So honoring that, giving yourself this gift, to not have to be anyone right now. Seeing if it's possible to really open to a whole body awareness. Just as an invitation, and noticing how that lands in the heart. To breathe and to be here with the whole body. Everything's included. And if there's stress, or there's wanting something to be different, or if there's a sense of I'm not doing this right, just welcoming that in too. Folding it back into the breath and the body. This is the great alchemy of the heart. And in meditation, we can compost whatever's arising in experience, folding it back into the earth of the body. for these last few minutes, the invitation is to fully let go. What would that feel like to not have to try to do anything, but sit here and breathe? Letting this awareness be wide open, as wide as you would like. And allowing whatever arises to just pass right through. The word nirvana or nibbana, the Buddha used it because it meant to cool, to take something off of the heat. Off of the heat of craving and grasping and aversion and confusion. What does it feel like to take the mind off of the heat and to let it cool? So thank you so much for your practice. I say this every time, but it really means so much to me. Just that few folks are here, want to come and take time out of their busy week to just sit here together and breathe. We're gonna pass some bios around. This month is AAPI Heritage Month, and so each week we are honoring teachers, Dharma teachers. And so this month, her name is Dawn Mauricio. And I'll just be pulling a few quotes, but part of our goal is to expose people to all of these beautiful, diverse teachers that are out there. And so I'll be pulling in a little bit from that. So I've heard it said that people write books. People write the books that they need to read, in a way. And in some ways, I've noticed with these talks that I've kind of started to write talks that feel unusually relevant for me. And I've really been struggling with this one, with stress, with burnout, especially over the last few weeks. And this metaphor was coming to mind as I was preparing for this talk, where I feel like I'm always trying to cover up the signs of it. There's so many ways where I'm trying to not let it show, the internal stress, patching it up. And it's like the metaphor that came to mind is like there's this water that keeps seeping out, and I keep putting patches all over my body in different places to try to not let it show. And that in itself can be exhausting. And so I wanted to talk directly about it, about stress, because I think it's one of the most universal human experiences. And I wanted to talk about it in a few ways, particularly what we did at the beginning there, recognizing the signs of it, using mindfulness as a tool to recognize signs that something is starting to be out of balance. And then also how to use a meditation practice or mindfulness as a preventative measure against burnout to help the nervous system have some regular check-ins so that it doesn't get to that point where it's really burnt out and taxing and harder to recover. But to start, I wanted to talk a little bit just about what stress is. I've noticed a lot of literature in recent years kind of debunking the myth that stress is in and of itself a bad thing. A lot of psychologists distinguish between eustress, that's EU stress, which is positive stress, and distress, and said that eustress can help motivate, improve performance, build resilience, enhance immune function. Some degree of stress is healthy for the body, and some forms of it are. And what comes to my mind for that is just like social interactions for me. There's some degree of stress that comes with any kind of social interaction. As a therapist, interacting with people, being in community, but it's so worth it. I wouldn't want to live a life that didn't have that kind of friction that comes from community, because it's continually also revitalizes me, teaches me things. I learn from it. I'm able to recover from that kind of, I would say, a milder stress. And so while short bursts of stress are normal, chronic stress, especially without recovery or emotional regulation, can lead to shutting down the immune system, poor memory concentration, and of course, fueling anxiety and depression and burnout. And so this is really in line with Buddhist thought in a lot of ways too, where unpleasant feeling tone and pleasant feeling tone, this is just part of human life. It doesn't mean something is inevitably wrong or bad happening because there's an unpleasant feeling in the body. And that there's also this just baked in stress of being human where we're bound up in this body that is aging and getting sick and all of these things that are out of our control, this kind of temporary body. So this is what the Buddha called dukkha. Sounds funny. Dukkha meaning suffering or stress. And this is just kind of the inevitable built-in, just kind of unsatisfying parts of being alive. So the road is bumpy. Life is bumpy. But he had this great metaphor for the added mental stress, which is a wheel where one of the axles is missing. So every time this wheel spins around, you can imagine what if you're getting pulled by a cart, there's just this something is just feeling off. And so the ride is really, really not smooth. Dawn Mauricio, the talk that I listened to by her, she's saying like maybe more of a modern translation of that is when you get the shopping cart and you don't realize it till you're already halfway or you're in the produce aisle, and it's just that. And so this is the stress that comes from tanha, thirst or craving, as the Buddha put it, and upadana, grasping, holding on, or aversion. And so how this shows up in related to burnout, things like overworking, ignoring limits, clinging to control or perfection, avoiding rest or emotional check-ins, and the idea being that this is actually not mandatory. This is where the mind adds this layer of suffering that was so central to the Buddhist teachings that it is possible to free the mind from. So this word sati, which means mindfulness, which means remembering, is a form of listening. And in particular, how it can be helpful for this practice is listening to the dissonance in the heart. And I really feel like this is one of the main reasons why I meditate and why I practice, is to just sit down and figure out what the hell is going on for a few minutes. after such a busy day or a busy week. Particularly last week, I don't know why. I was so much moving and 2 steps ahead of myself. And I had the luxury on Sunday in the middle of the day of having 3 or 4 hours where I just sat down and I got to sit on my cushion, got to meditate, think about this stuff, reflect a bit. And I noticed I completely turned the energy of my week around. I was able to start my Monday yesterday in a very different place, listening to what's happening, noticing how the mind is out of balance. And so this is not to say that there should be no stress in the body, but listening for the signs that something is not sustainable about the way that I'm living right now. And everybody went around earlier and shared something that was a sign of that. I find it all too easy to fall into a lifestyle which checks off the capitalist checklist of getting things done and makes money, but leaves me feeling completely depleted. And this is like so common and normalized in a way that I think is really messed up and really backwards. I have found that I have a very strong drive and I have a strong work ethic, and that has been great for me in some ways, and it has been absolutely terrible for me in other ways. It has gotten me jobs and also driven me into addiction and having to be on or having to perform or whatever that is. So noticing what those signs are for you, really starting to be, what I want to encourage is being curious. For me, it's like I said, waking up feeling. That's how I can know something. That's like, okay, day hasn't even started. Waking up, mind is already amped. Like there's some energy, there's some momentum that tells me that something is off. And I noticed that shift because I woke up today, a few days later, having had some time to reset. My first thought was, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day. I can feel it. The nervous system is telling me something. Other things that come up for me is like really dysregulated breathing. Like I notice I'm just breathing really weird, or like only breathing from like here up or something like that. And I tend to turn inward also. I lose my ability to really communicate or have important conversations, and definitely impacts my practice as a therapist, things I need to be doing. So all the more reason to pay attention and to listen. And so part of this practice is getting familiar with those signs so I get farther down the road before I can check it and reset. And this is an ongoing practice, and I think it's going to be unique for everybody. And mindfulness can also be preventative in the sense that checking in on this more regularly can start to recognize what that feels like when we're beyond capacity. And knowing the difference between normal everyday stress, okay, that was just a challenging day, like there's nothing I could have done about it, and actual burnout, when there's those signs of something starting to become more chronic. And that's a sign that something needs to give or something needs to change. And in terms of being preventative, obviously one of the best things that we can do to prevent burnout is setting some boundaries around time, obligations, and having some time. Yeah, this is a real one for me too. Some time where maybe it's not filled up with the block schedule or whatever it is. And I was thinking about this, and I think there's a couple things important in that time. Some downtime, some check out time is important. For me, that's 30 minutes to an hour of TV every single day, and I'm completely neurotic about how that has to be. Don't ask Olivia, but there's 15 things that all need to be in place. Need to be showered, hand lotion, what else? Food, drink, 2 drinks, like everything.
A pair of socks.
Nighttime socks. You got to have your nighttime socks. So it's a sacred thing for me, But then I think it's also important to have check-in practices, right? Like practices where I'm not just dissociating to some extent, and really tuning in to what's here, because I think that's where the real transformation can happen in the heart and where the nervous system can really start to re-regulate. And that's where meditation comes in, and meditation retreats and things like that can come in. So I listened to this talk by Dawn Mauricio, and she talks a lot about her experience in going and sitting retreats and the anxiety and the panic that came up on these retreats, and being like, why am I doing this thing that is challenging, right? Like I could be at a spa, I could be doing something else, but instead I'm silent and I'm sitting here with my own suffering. And she says, but I'm still here. She's talking about meditation, but I'm still here. And I stay because it has proven to be, time and time again, the most reliable thing in my life that brings me deep and really reliable, long-lasting happiness. That, to me, feels so true. It's not easy. It's not always relaxing, but it is tried and true, and it works. And the way she describes meditation in this talk is moving from a conceptual-based reality to a sense-based reality. And I really like that, moving deeply into the senses. And from Buddhist perspective, technically, the mind is still a sense gate, but it can kind of suck all the energy sometimes. And so I love that metaphor of moving into a sense-based reality, listening. And she says that the Buddha would call this trading candy for gold, trading lesser pleasures for a greater happiness. And she talks about how she uses things like massage, like Netflix, like a spa, things that are self-soothing and help her to self-regulate, and that being very important, but that she uses those things to ultimately support her meditation practice. That those things are important, that check out or tuning in, whatever you want to call those practices. But ultimately, tuning in a deep way to what's here is something that's onward leading and can help prevent burnout. So to know stress, not just for the sake of knowing it, but really for understanding it. I think this is where meditation can really be helpful. The silence, the sitting with the unpleasant, the discomfort. What is it that's happening here? And she uses this Ajahn Chah quote where she says, or Ajahn Chah said, if you try to understand everything, you will understand nothing. If you try to understand one thing, you will understand everything. That to me feels so relevant to this. And there's two things I pulled out of that. One, not overdoing even the beautiful things in my life, all the things that I want to do, not overdoing them. Like even the wellness routines can get totally out of hand, right? Like I got to wake up 4:30 a.m. so I can meditate, sauna, cold plunge, cardio, weights, breath work, thank you, yoga, right? Like there's so many great things to be done, but packing too much into the schedule can add more stress instead of really what these things are supposed to be storing, which is de-stressing. And then the second thing about this quote, it really highlights the Buddhist approach, the value of turning towards one thing, which is just this immediate experience. Setting everything else down, tuning into what's really here, and asking this really important question, which is, what is this and what does it need right now? It's always a helpful question, always a different answer, always shifting, always changing. And this prevents falling into the trap of burnout. This prevents the mind from falling into the traps of grasping and perfectionism and needing to get everything done perfectly. And in it instead acknowledge this deep and profound freedom that's like already here. A very turning of the orientation from, if I get all these things done, I'm going to be happy, towards it's actually already here. It just needs to be uncovered and given that time and light of day. So at the heart of this practice, just two things. Sitting down regularly and breathing. Listening to the heart, allowing it to reset, cultivating all these beautiful things like calm, like compassion and patience, having a dedicated practice. And then 2, letting this practice inform how I move through the world. How am I scheduling my life, my work, my relationships? Is there time? Is there space? Am I using this wisdom from this practice so that my life doesn't become this chaotic, overly busy experience? Dawn says, the truth about living mindfully is that it is most effective when practiced in as many little moments of your day as possible. Really love that, because it takes this kind of common misconception that it's like, I don't have time to do this, which is, fair, but it doesn't, meditation or mindfulness is not just about sitting down, right? Having these little moments through the day, sitting in the car, right? Wherever it is, to have a moment to check in, to reset. Recognizing signs that the mind maybe is moving towards burnout or overly stressed, and developing a personal practice that can be preventative and prevent burnout.